The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched impossibly wide, its vaulted ceiling lost in darkness that seemed to swallow light itself. Ambassador Thomas Reed stood alone on the central platform, a singular human figure surrounded by 300 alien representatives from across the known universe. The chamber's architecture was designed to intimidate, crystalline structures that refracted light in ways that disoriented non-native species, acoustic design that made the booming voices of the council elders echo with authority. The species known as humans has been summoned before this council to answer for crimes against galactic harmony, announced High Elder Vorex, his gelatinous form pulsating with bioluminescent patterns of outrage. You have expanded beyond your assigned boundaries. You have harvested resources from prohibited systems. You have developed technologies deemed dangerous by our ancient accords. Thomas maintained a perfect diplomatic posture, hands clasped behind his back. His heartbeat remained steady despite the tension. Humanity acknowledges the Council's concerns, Thomas replied, his voice carrying through the chamber with unexpected clarity. We request the opportunity to present context for our actions. A ripple of murmurs passed through the assembly. The 7 elders conferred among themselves, their private communication channels buzzing. Denied, declared Elder Krill, her insectoid mandibles clicking with finality. The evidence has been reviewed. The judgment is set. The council has voted. Thomas noticed the subtle shifts in the chamber, security drones moving into position, energy barriers activating around the platform. This wasn't a trial, it was an execution. In accordance with Protocol 7 Alpha of the Galactic Charter, continued High Elder Vorex, this council hereby declares a state of corrective war against the species known as humans and the planet designated as Earth. The pronouncement hung in the air as Thomas closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, a small smile played at the corners of his mouth. I am authorized to inform you that humanity has anticipated this outcome, Thomas said. He raised his hand, revealing a small metallic device. This judgment was transmitted to Earth 27 minutes ago, the moment I entered this chamber. The council chamber erupted in outrage. Impossible, shouted Elder Krill. All quantum communications are blocked in this sector. Yes, they are, Thomas agreed pleasantly. Yet the transmission was received and confirmed. On the massive viewing screens around the chamber, live feeds suddenly appeared showing the immediate space around the council station. Dozens of human vessels were decloaking, ships that no sensor had detected, that shouldn't have been able to approach undetected through the most heavily guarded sector in the galaxy. Humanity has existed in the shadow of extinction for most of our history, Thomas continued as chaos erupted around him. First from natural disasters, then from our own weapons, and now from you. We've adapted. We've prepared. What you perceive as aggression was merely preparation. High Elder Vorex's bioluminescence flashed in patterns of alarm. Restrain the human. Security drones converged on Thomas but passed through his form as if he weren't there. I'm not actually present in your chamber, Thomas's image said. I never was. Your sensors, your guards, your impenetrable defenses, they've been compromised for years. The real Ambassador Thomas Reed sat aboard the UES Prometheus, watching the Council's reaction through a perfect holographic projection. Beside him, Admiral Elaine Jackson nodded grimly. Operation Sunflare is authorized, she spoke into her command interface. All units engage according to the Thermopylae Protocol. Throughout the Council station, hidden human agents activated jamming devices that disrupted the station's defense systems. Council security forces found their weapons suddenly inoperable. Communication channels went dead, leaving the gathered representatives isolated from their home worlds. On Earth, the Defense Council gathered in an underground bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. President Marcus Wong studied the live feed from the Prometheus with a heavy expression. So it begins, he said quietly. After all our attempts at peaceful coexistence, Defense Secretary Olivia Benson nodded solemnly. We've prepared for this moment for 30 years. Mr. President, ever since our deep space probes discovered the Council's existence and their policy toward emerging species. Activate the planetary shield network, the President ordered. All military personnel to battle stations. Civilian evacuation to begin immediately. Across Earth, massive underground shelters that had been disguised as subway systems and shopping centers opened their doors. Citizens moved calmly through drills they had practiced dozens of times. believing them to be merely precautionary exercises. In orbit, satellite networks that had appeared to be weather and communication systems revealed their true purpose, generating a planetary defense grid that could withstand attacks far beyond what any Earth nation had publicly demonstrated the ability to produce. Back in the council chamber, the alien representatives were beginning to understand the gravity of their situation. They were not in control. They had not been for some time. "What do you want, human?" demanded High Elder Vorax, his bioluminescent patterns now displaying caution mixed with fear. The hologram of Thomas Reed smiled thinly. "Originally, peaceful acceptance into the galactic community, the right to exist without your interference, the freedom to develop according to our own path rather than your prescribed limits. And now?" Elder Krill asked, her mandibles twitching nervously. "Now we want you to understand what you've done," Thomas replied. "You've declared war on a species that has spent its entire existence fighting, against nature, against each other, and now against you. A species that developed in isolation, without your constraints and limitations." On the viewing screens, more human vessels appeared, forming a blockade around the council station. They made no aggressive moves, simply holding position. "This station houses representatives from 300 worlds," Thomas continued. "We have no quarrel with most of them. We offer safe passage to any delegation not directly involved in the decision to declare war on Earth." Several representatives immediately rose from their seats, moving toward the exit portals. Council security forces moved to stop them, but found themselves unable to act as human operatives throughout the station revealed themselves. "The Council does not negotiate with primitive species," High Elder Vorax declared, though his bioluminescent confidence was visibly dimming. "This isn't a negotiation," Thomas replied calmly. "This is an education." On the Prometheus, Admiral Jackson received confirmation that human agents had secured key systems throughout the Council station. "All non-hostile delegations have been evacuated, Ambassador," she reported. "Shall we proceed with the demonstration?" Thomas nodded gravely. "The Council believes us to be primitives playing with technologies we don't understand. Show them how wrong they are." In the depths of space, far from any inhabited system, a small fleet of human vessels gathered around what appeared to be an ordinary asteroid. As the Council's emergency security protocols finally managed to re-establish their observation systems, they found their sensors directed to this distant location. "What are we seeing?" demanded Elder Krill. The hologram of Thomas Reed gestured to the viewing screen. "The future." The asteroid suddenly split open, revealing a massive device of unknown design. Energy readings spiked beyond anything the Council's sensors could properly measure. "This is a small-scale demonstration of humanity's true technological capability," Thomas explained. "Technology we developed in secret while presenting ourselves as a young, developing species." On the screen, the device activated, sending a focused beam of energy toward a nearby uninhabited planet. As the beam made contact, the planet's surface began to glow. Within moments, the entire atmosphere ignited in a controlled reaction that spread rapidly across the world. "We call it the Prometheus Protocol," Thomas continued, as the Council watched in horror. "Named after a figure from human mythology who stole fire from the gods. When the reaction completed, the planet remained intact but permanently transformed, its entire surface converted into a different state of matter that the Council's scientists couldn't immediately identify. This demonstration was conducted on an uninhabited world," Thomas said. "We are not monsters. But make no mistake, every Council world that supported the war declaration against Earth is now within range of similar devices." In the stunned silence that followed, Thomas Reed delivered humanity's terms. "Rescind your declaration of war. Acknowledge Earth's sovereignty. Guarantee our independence from Council interference. These are our only demands." As the Council elders conferred frantically among themselves, humanity prepared for their response, and for the possibility that this would be just the first engagement in a war unlike any the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Galactic Armada's initial assault on Earth's solar system met with unexpected resistance. Where the Council's intelligence had indicated minimal orbital defenses, they encountered a vast network of automated platforms that materialized seemingly from nowhere. On the bridge of the Galactic Command vessel Indomitable, Fleet Commander Drez watched in disbelief as the first wave of their attack force was decimated. "How is this possible?" he demanded, his scaled skin flushing deep purple with rage. Their defensive capability was assessed at level 3, This is beyond level 8. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Urs, studied the battle data with 4 of her eyes while keeping her other 2 focused on emergency protocols. Sir, analysis indicates human stealth technology exceeds our detection capabilities. Those platforms were there all along. We simply couldn't see them. No species could develop such technology without us knowing, Dres insisted. Admiral Elaine Jackson's face suddenly appeared on the Indomitable's main communication screen. She was a stern-looking human female with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun, her uniform bearing minimal insignia despite her high rank. Fleet Commander Dres, she said calmly, I suggest you withdraw your remaining forces immediately. This demonstration was merely a courtesy, a chance for you to recognize your strategic error, Dres snarled, baring razor-sharp teeth. The Galactic Council does not negotiate with primitive species. Your resistance is noted but futile. Our main fleet will arrive within 3 days and your extinction will proceed as planned. Admiral Jackson's expression didn't change. You misunderstand, Commander. We're not resisting extinction. We're preventing yours. With that cryptic statement, the communication ended. Moments later, Lieutenant Urs gasped, her compound eyes widening. Sir, massive energy signatures detected throughout the system. They're coming from the asteroid belt. Dres turned to the tactical display just in time to see hundreds of objects detaching from what had appeared to be ordinary asteroids. Each one was a disguised human warship, powered up and moving with alarming speed toward the remnants of the Galactic Advance Force. Retreat, Dres ordered. All vessels emergency jump to rendezvous coordinates. But the human ships didn't pursue. Instead, they formed a defensive perimeter around the solar system. A clear message. This far, no further. In a secure facility beneath the surface of Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon, Dr. Maya Patel worked frantically with her team of scientists. Around them, massive particle accelerators hummed with power as they refined the final components of Project Prometheus. The Council's main fleet will arrive in 3 days, she told her exhausted team. We need to be ready. Her assistant, Dr. James Wilson, looked up from his quantum calculations. The containment field is stable, but the power requirements are astronomical. Even with all our fusion reactors, we can only generate enough energy for a single deployment. Maya's face was grim as she studied the simulation results. 1 deployment is all we need, James. 1 deployment to show them what happens when you threaten humanity's existence. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden military might emerge from decades of secrecy. Ships that had been disguised as mining vessels revealed their true nature. Orbital platforms that appeared to be communication relays transformed into weapon systems. The facade of a developing civilization fell away to reveal a species that had been preparing for this exact scenario for generations. In the diplomatic center on Mars, Professor Andrei Volkov led a team analyzing Council communications they'd been secretly intercepting for years. Their assumption was that our technological development followed the same trajectory as other species, he explained to the gathered military leaders. But humanity's history of conflict gave us a unique perspective. We developed stealth and deception while they focused on raw power. General Marcus Davis, his dark skin contrasting with his white uniform, nodded thoughtfully. So they have no idea what we're actually capable of. Correct, Andre confirmed. And they won't know until it's too late. Back on Earth, President Wong convened an emergency meeting with representatives from every nation. Unlike the fractious political gatherings of earlier centuries, this assembly moved with unified purpose. The Galactic Council believes us to be divided and weak, the President addressed the gathered leaders. They expected us to panic, to fight among ourselves when faced with an external threat. They don't understand that humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to unite against a common enemy. The representative from Nigeria, Ambassador Adeyemi, nodded in agreement. The planetary defense grid is fully operational. All nations have contributed their resources as agreed in the Phoenix Protocol. What about civilian evacuation? Asked the Japanese Prime Minister, his face grave. Proceeding according to plan, replied Defense Secretary Benson. 80% of the population is now in secure underground facilities. The remaining 20% should be sheltered within the next 48 hours. As the meeting continued, a junior aide entered the chamber and whispered urgently to the Defense Secretary. Her eyes widened slightly before she interrupted the discussion. Mr. President, We've just received a transmission from the Council's High Command. They're requesting a direct communication with you. The room fell silent. This was unexpected. The Council's standard procedure was to communicate only through their military chain of command, never directly with the leadership of a species marked for correction. "Put it through," the President ordered. The main screen in the chamber activated, revealing the imposing figure of Supreme War Coordinator Zalathar, his exoskeleton gleaming under artificial light, 6 eyes blinking in an unsettling pattern. "President of Earth," Zalathar began without preamble, "I speak as the designated executor of the Council's will. Your species has displayed unexpected capabilities." President Wong maintained a neutral expression. "War Coordinator Zalathar, we attempted to demonstrate those capabilities peacefully for decades. Your Council chose not to see. The past is irrelevant," Zalathar dismissed with a wave of a clawed appendage. "I am authorized to offer terms. Submit to partial correction the elimination of your military, capacity and technological restrictions, and the majority of your population will be permitted to survive." Murmur ran through the assembled Earth leaders. This was the closest the Council had ever come to negotiation with a species marked for correction. President Wong's expression remained unchanged. "And if we refuse? Then the full might of the Galactic Council will descend upon your world in 3 days," Zalathar replied. "Not merely the advance force you encountered, but 5,000 warships representing the combined power of 300 species. No defense can withstand such an assault." The President exchanged glances with Defense Secretary Benson before responding. "We will consider your offer and respond within 24 hours. Zalathar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "A wise decision. Perhaps your species has some capacity for reason after all." The transmission ended. "They're afraid," Defense Secretary Benson said into the silence that followed. "They wouldn't offer terms if they weren't uncertain, or they're stalling," countered General Davis, "and giving themselves time to analyze our defenses and develop countermeasures." President Wong rose to his feet. "It doesn't matter. Our course was set the moment they declared war. Admiral Jackson, what's the status of the Prometheus project?" A holographic projection of the Admiral appeared in the center of the room. "Final calibrations are underway, Mr. President. The device will be ready for deployment in 36 hours. "And the target?" the President asked quietly. Admiral Jackson's expression was solemn. "As discussed, sir, the demonstration will be visible to every world in the Council, but no populated planets will be harmed." "Very good." The President nodded. "Proceed as planned, and send our response to War Coordinator Zalathar immediately." "Sir?" Admiral Jackson questioned, surprised at the immediate decision. "Tell him humanity rejects any terms that require our submission. We will meet their fleet with the full measure of our capability, and remind him that we've studied their history. We know what happened to the last 12 species that were marked for correction." As Admiral Jackson's hologram disappeared, Ambassador Adeyemi leaned forward. "What do you think will happen when they realize we've been monitoring them for decades? That we know their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities?" President Wong looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Council fleet. "I think they're about to learn the most important lesson about humanity. We don't fight to conquer. We fight to survive. And that makes us more dangerous than they can possibly imagine." In the cold depths of space, the Galactic Council's main fleet continued its advance toward Earth, unaware that they were heading not toward a primitive world ripe for conquest, but into a trap decades in the making, a trap that would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. Day 3 arrived with the Galactic Council's main fleet emerging from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 5,000 warships representing the combined might of 300 species, arranged in perfect formation for the extermination of humanity. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, United Earth Defense Force Supreme Commander Diana Reyes watched the holographic display with composed intensity. Around her, military leaders from every nation maintained disciplined silence as the enormity of the threat became clear. "They've committed their entire fleet," observed General Takahashi, his weathered face illuminated by the tactical displays. "Just as we predicted," Diana nodded. "And just as we needed." She activated the global communication system. "All defense grids to Poseidon status. Engage quantum entanglement protocol." Across the solar system, Human defenders activated technology that no other species had yet discovered, quantum entanglement on a massive scale, allowing for instantaneous communication and coordination without detectable signals. Aboard the Galactic Council's flagship Inevitable Dominion, Supreme War Coordinator Zalathar observed the human defenses with 6 eyes that betrayed no emotion. His exoskeleton, burnished from 1,000 victories, gleamed under the command center lights. Their resistance is more organized than expected, he noted to his war council, but ultimately irrelevant. Begin the primary assault pattern. The massive galactic fleet split into 3 coordinated attack groups, executing maneuvers with precision born from millennia of military evolution. Energy weapons of devastating power lanced out toward human defenses, only to encounter something unexpected. The beams bent around their targets, redirected by gravitational distortion fields that shouldn't have been possible with human technology. Impossible, whispered Zalathar's chief scientist, Misa. They've weaponized space-time itself. The human counterattack began with surgical precision. Rather than matching the Council's overwhelming firepower, human vessels targeted specific vulnerabilities with weapons that seemed designed for each species' unique weaknesses. Ships commanded by methane-breathing Creel suddenly found their atmosphere venting. Vessels operated by the photosynthetic lure went dark, as specialized emissions blocked their life-giving radiation spectrums. They knew, Zalathar realized with growing horror. They've studied us, prepared for us. Specifically, on Europa, Dr. Maya Patel received the signal she'd been waiting for. The Council fleet is fully committed to the engagement. All vessels are within the target zone. Initiating Project Prometheus. The massive particle accelerators beneath Europa's ice reached maximum power. Energy readings spiked beyond anything the facility had ever handled before. In the heart of the complex, a contained quantum singularity began to pulse with impossible energy. Quantum entanglement established, with all defensive platforms, reported Dr. Wilson. Ready? On your command, Maya took a deep breath. Execute. Throughout the solar system, human defensive platforms suddenly emitted synchronized pulses of energy, not attacking the galactic fleet directly, but creating a complex web of intersecting fields. Aboard the Inevitable Dominion, alarms blared as sensors detected the energy pattern forming around them. What is this? Demanded Zalathar. Some form of weapon? No, War Coordinator, replied Misa, her voice trembling. It's a cage. The quantum web solidified, creating a bubble of altered spacetime around the entire galactic fleet. Inside this bubble, the laws of physics began to change subtly. Hyperspace engines failed. Communication systems went silent. The mighty armada found itself trapped, unable to escape or call for help. From a small, unassuming vessel at the edge of the battle, Ambassador Thomas Reed opened a direct communication channel to Zalathar. The human's expression was solemn, devoid of triumph. War Coordinator, your fleet is now contained within a quantum isolation field. You cannot escape. You cannot call for reinforcements. You exist for all practical purposes in a pocket universe under our control. Zalathar's mandibles clicked in fury. Release us immediately or face— You are not in a position to make threats, Thomas interrupted calmly. For decades, your council has treated humanity as a primitive species to be controlled, and eventually eliminated when convenient. You never bothered to understand us. If you had, you would have recognized a fundamental truth about humans. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. On the command screens across the trapped fleet, images began to appear, detailed schematics of the Council's homeworlds, defense systems, and even the supposedly secret bunkers of their leadership. While you watched us openly, we studied you from the shadows, Thomas continued. Every species on your council, every weakness, every vulnerability. We mapped your entire civilization while you thought us barely capable of interplanetary travel. Zalathar's exoskeleton paled. What do you want? Originally, peaceful coexistence. Now, Thomas's expression hardened. Now we want you to witness what happens when humanity is forced to reveal its full capabilities. In the Earth Command Center, President Wang observed the exchange with grim satisfaction. Proceed with the second phase, Commander Reyes. Diana nodded and issued new orders across the quantum network. Throughout the solar system, a second layer of defenses activated. Massive energy collectors positioned around the sun began harvesting solar material at an unprecedented rate. On the flagship Inevitable Dominion, Misa's monitoring equipment registered the new energy signatures. War Coordinator, the humans are... They're manipulating their star. Energy readings are beyond anything in our records. Zalathar turned to his tactical display, watching as the human technology performed feats that should have been impossible for a species at their development level. How? How did they advance so quickly without our knowledge? On the communication screen, Thomas Reed smiled thinly. Did it ever occur to you that we advanced so quickly precisely because of your interference? Every time your probes violated our space, we captured them, studied them, reverse engineered them. Your arrogance became our greatest teacher. As the quantum cage held the galactic fleet immobile, human ships methodically disabled the Council vessel's offensive capabilities. No destruction, no casualties, just precise, surgical neutralization of their ability to wage war. The Council has spent millennia believing itself to be the pinnacle of galactic civilization, Thomas continued. You've corrected dozens of species that didn't conform to your vision of proper development. You've committed genocide in the name of stability. Today that ends. In the Europa facility, Dr. Maya Patel monitored the final preparations of the Prometheus device. Energy containment at maximum capacity. Targeting system locked on the demonstration coordinates. Dr. Wilson looked up from his console, expression troubled. Maya, are we certain this is the right course? Once we cross this line... They crossed the line when they declared war on our existence, Maya replied firmly. This demonstration will ensure they never threaten Earth or any other developing species again. Back in the quantum cage, Zalathar watched helplessly as his mighty armada was systematically neutralized by human technology that defied explanation. You cannot hope to stand against the full might of the Galactic Council, he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Even if you defeat this fleet, more will come. We're counting on it, Thomas replied. In fact, we've made sure of it. He gestured and new images appeared on the Council's screens. Live feeds from hundreds of Council worlds where humans had secretly placed observation devices. On each world, the population was watching the battle unfold in real time, broadcast through communication networks that the Council's security forces couldn't shut down. Your people are watching, War Coordinator. All of them. The species you've subjugated. The civilizations you've guided. They're about to witness what happens when your Council faces a species that refuse to be controlled. On Earth, President Wong gave the final authorization. Activate the Prometheus Protocol. Commander Reyes relayed the order to the Europa facility. Dr. Patel, you are cleared to proceed with the demonstration. Maya nodded to her team. Initiating final sequence. Prometheus activation in 3, 2, 1. The quantum singularity at the heart of the Europa facility pulsed once, sending a surge of energy through the entangled network. Around the sun, the energy collectors focused their harvested power into a single, coherent beam aimed at a precise point in empty space beyond the trapped galactic fleet. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself began to tear. A rift opened in space, growing rapidly to the size of a small moon. Through this rift poured energies never before seen in this universe. A controlled cascade of interdimensional power that illuminated the solar system with iridescent fire. On every Council world, on every trapped vessel, all eyes watched as humanity demonstrated technology that even the most advanced Council species had only theorized might be possible. The ability to pierce the barriers between dimensions and harness the energy differential. This rift is fully controlled and contained, Thomas explained to the watching galaxy. We can open it where we choose, maintain it for as long as we wish, and close it at will. We have demonstrated this capability away from any inhabited worlds out of restraint, not necessity. Day 7 of the conflict brought an eerie calm. The Galactic Council's trapped fleet hung suspended in the quantum isolation field, neither advancing nor retreating. On Earth, citizens went about their daily lives, the distant battle having little effect on their routines, a testament to how thoroughly humanity had prepared for this moment. In the diplomatic center on Mars, the Emergency Council of Earth gathered to determine their next move. Representatives from every nation sat around a circular table, their faces illuminated by holographic displays of the trapped enemy fleet. We have them contained. But this is not a permanent solution, said Chairwoman Lee, her silver hair framing a face lined with decades of diplomatic experience. The rest of the Galactic Council will eventually mount a rescue mission. Defense Minister Okoye nodded in agreement. The quantum isolation field requires enormous energy to maintain. We have perhaps 3 more weeks before we must power down. Ambassador Thomas Reed, freshly returned from his communication with the Council leadership, addressed the Assembly. I've made our position clear to War Coordinator Zalathar. They understand the severity of their situation, but the Council leadership remains unwilling to recognize humanity as equals or rescind their declaration of war. Then we proceed to the next phase, Chairwoman Lee decided after a moment of heavy silence. Activate the Stellar Forge. Across the solar system, hidden installations began powering up technologies that defied conventional understanding of physics. At a classified facility orbiting Mercury, closest planet to the Sun, Director Nadia Volkov oversaw the final preparations of humanity's most ambitious project. The Stellar Forge, a massive array of satellites and stations surrounding the Sun, began to harvest stellar material in quantities that should have been impossible for a Level 3 civilization. Streams of superheated plasma arced between collection points in a beautiful, terrible dance. Aboard the trapped flagship Inevitable Dominion, Zalathar received another transmission from Earth. This time, it was Supreme Commander Diana Reyes who appeared on screen, her military uniform immaculate, her expression resolute. War Coordinator, we are transmitting visual feed of our next demonstration. Please observe carefully. The screens shifted to show the Stellar Forge in operation around the Sun. Massive energies were being channeled, redirected and focused with precision that left even the Council's scientists speechless. What you are witnessing, Diana explained, is humanity's mastery of stellar manipulation. Technology your scientists believed was at least a millennium beyond our capabilities. Zalathar watched as the forge began to compress solar material into an impossibly dense sphere, smaller than Earth's moon but glowing with the concentrated energy of a star. What are you doing? He asked, mandibles trembling. Creating. Diana replied simply. Observe. The compressed stellar material suddenly flashed with blinding light. When the light faded, where there had been only energy before, there now floated a perfect sphere of solid material, a small artificial planet, forged from the heart of the Sun itself. Impossible, whispered Misa, the chief scientist. They've created matter from pure energy in controlled conditions. The power requirements alone would exceed the output of a dozen stars. Diana's expression remained neutral. This is but a small demonstration of what we can create or destroy with this technology. Your fleet remains contained not because we lack the power to eliminate it, but because we still hope for a peaceful resolution. On Mercury's orbital facility, Director Volkov received new orders from Earth Command. With a heavy heart, she authorized the reconfiguration of the Stellar Forge from creation to destruction. All personnel to secure stations, she announced over the facility-wide communication system, preparing for weaponization sequence. The beautiful array of technology that had just demonstrated creation now began to shift, components realigning into a configuration that focused destructive power rather than creative energy. Back in the Mars Diplomatic Center, Ambassador Thomas Reed made one final attempt at negotiation. He opened a direct channel to the Galactic Council's High Chamber on their capital world, bypassing all security protocols as if they didn't exist. The 7 elders of the Council found themselves staring at a human face on their most secure communication system, a system that should have been impenetrable. Elders of the Council, Thomas began, his voice calm but resolute. You have witnessed only a fraction of humanity's capabilities. We did not reveal these technologies earlier because we hoped to be accepted into the galactic community peacefully, based on our character rather than our power. High Elder Vorex's bioluminescent patterns flickered with alarm and outrage. You deceived the entire council. You posed as a primitive species while developing forbidden technologies. We developed what was necessary to ensure our survival, Thomas countered. A survival you threatened without provocation or just cause. We now offer you one final choice. Recognize humanity as equals and withdraw your declaration of war, or witness the consequences of your decision. As the elders conferred among themselves, screens throughout the chamber displayed the Stellar Forge's transformation into a weapon of unimaginable power, a weapon that could, quite literally, incinerate worlds on Earth. President Wong met with his closest advisors in a secure chamber, deep beneath the presidential complex. "Are we certain this is the right course?" asked science advisor Dr. Renata Coelho, her expression troubled. "Once we demonstrate the full capacity of the Stellar Forge, there's no going back. We will forever be viewed as a threat by the rest of the galaxy." "We're already viewed as a threat," countered Defense Secretary Benson. "The difference is whether we're perceived as a threat they can eliminate, or one they must respect." President Wong studied the holographic representation of the Stellar Forge floating above the conference table. "We spent centuries dreaming of peaceful contact with alien civilizations, decades preparing for the possibility that contact might be hostile. When we finally detected the Council's presence and learned of their policy of correcting emerging species, we had a choice: reveal ourselves and beg for mercy, or prepare in secret for the inevitable confrontation. We chose survival," General Davis said firmly. "Yes," the President nodded, "but survival isn't enough. We need to ensure this never happens again, not to us, not to any other emerging civilization." Dr. Coelho leaned forward. "The demonstration target has been prepared. An uninhabited system, but within visual range of 17 Council worlds. The effect will be dramatic and irreversible," added science advisor Dr. Coelho solemnly. "This technology cannot be uninvented. Once demonstrated, the galaxy will know what we're capable of." "They already know," President Wong replied. "What matters now is what we do with that capability." He turned to General Davis. "Is the Stellar Forge ready?" "Yes, Mr. President. Director Volkov reports all systems nominal. Awaiting final authorization." President Wong closed his eyes briefly, the weight of the decision visible in the set of his shoulders. When he opened them, his resolve was clear. "Send the authorization code. Operation Solar Flare is now active." In orbit around Mercury, Director Volkov received the presidential authorization. She entered her command codes into the system and spoke clearly for the record. "Presidential authorization confirmed. Stellar Forge weaponization sequence commencing." The massive array around the sun hummed with power as its configuration shifted. Energy collectors positioned at precise points in the solar corona began harvesting material at an accelerated rate, channeling it through a complex network of gravitational lenses and quantum accelerators. In the heart of the forge, artificial intelligence systems calculated the exact parameters needed to achieve the demonstration effect without causing unintended damage to nearby systems. The target, a gas giant in an uninhabited system 50 light-years from Earth, was locked in. "Energy accumulation at 90%, reported the chief engineer. "Stellar material containment holding steady." Director Volkov watched the readouts with focused attention. "Proceed with final alignment." Across the galaxy, on 17 Council worlds, astronomers suddenly detected an anomalous energy signature emanating from the direction of the human solar system. Their instruments registered a focused beam of energy moving through space at speeds that shouldn't have been possible, carrying power equivalent to a small star. On the Galactic Council's capital world, the elders gathered in their observatory dome, watching as humanity's demonstration unfolded in real time. No decision had yet been reached on Thomas Reed's ultimatum, but what they were about to witness would render such deliberations moot. "Energy beam approaching target system," reported a council scientist, her voice quavering with a mixture of fear and awe. As the elders watched, the beam from Earth's stellar forge reached the target gas giant. For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the planet began to glow from within, its atmospheric layers lighting up in sequence as the energy penetrated to its core. "Core temperature rising exponentially," the scientist continued, "molecular bonds destabilizing across all layers." The gas giant's illumination intensified until it shone brighter than its parent star. Then, in a display visible across 17 star systems, the planet ignited, not exploding but transforming into a sustained fusion RE. The Galactic Council's response came not in words but in actions. Even as the elders feigned deliberation, they secretly dispatched orders to their reserve fleets. Sensors throughout human space detected massive mobilization as the Council prepared to sacrifice their trapped armada in favor of an even larger assault. In the Mars Diplomatic Center, the Emergency Council of Earth received the intelligence with grim resignation. They still believe they can overwhelm us with superior numbers. noted Defense Minister Okoye. They haven't grasped that our technological advantage isn't marginal, it's exponential. Chairwoman Lee closed her eyes briefly, the weight of what came next visibly heavy on her shoulders. Then we have no choice but to demonstrate the full extent of our capability. May history judge us kindly. She turned to the communication officer. Send the authorization code. Operation Prometheus is now active. Throughout human space, military vessels and defense platforms received the code and began final preparations. The trapped galactic fleet would serve as the demonstration that would end this war, one way or another. On the Stellar Forge command station, Director Volkov received the authorization with a heavy heart. Begin final targeting sequence. Primary focus on uninhabited space within visual range of the contained fleet. Her second-in-command, Commander Jackson, looked at her with surprise. Not the fleet itself? No, Volkov replied firmly. We're not executioners. We're teachers. The lesson must be unmistakable, but we remain human, with all that entails. The massive array of technology surrounding the sun began its final alignment. Channeling energy on a scale never before witnessed in the galaxy, the quantum isolation field containing the galactic fleet subtly shifted, ensuring the occupants would have a clear view of what was to come, while remaining protected from its effects. Ambassador Thomas. Reed opened one final communication channel to both the trapped fleet and the Galactic Council chambers. This demonstration will commence in 30 minutes, he announced. What you are about to witness is called the Prometheus Protocol, named after a figure from human mythology who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. It represents our mastery of energies your sciences have yet to comprehend. War Coordinator Zalathar, his arrogance finally broken by the realities he faced, asked the question that now consumed the council. What exactly are you going to do? Thomas's expression was solemn. We're going to incinerate the boundary between dimensions. The final minutes ticked down in tense silence. Throughout human space, citizens took shelter in specialized bunkers designed to protect against the peripheral effects of the demonstration. The Stellar Forge reached full power, the sun's corona visibly distorting as unimaginable energies were harvested and focused. 3 minutes before activation, Supreme Commander Diana Reyes addressed all military personnel. Remember why we built these weapons, not for conquest, not for revenge, but as the ultimate deterrent. After today, the galaxy will never again mistake our preference for peace as weakness. At the moment of activation, the Stellar Forge released its gathered power in a precisely controlled beam that tore through space toward an empty region beyond the solar system. For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen, just a beam of light stretching into the distance. Then, reality itself began to crack. The fabric of space-time split open, creating a rift between dimensions that grew rapidly to the size of a small moon. The rift glowed with energies never before seen in this universe, radiating power that defied measurement. Around its edges, matter and energy from other realities bled through in cascading waves of iridescent fire. Through the quantum isolation field, the Council fleet watched in horrified awe as an interdimensional inferno erupted in space, a controlled apocalypse that could have easily engulfed their vessels had humans chosen a different target. In the Galactic Council chamber, the Elders witnessed the same spectacle through their advanced observation systems. High Elder Vorex's bioluminescence faded to near darkness, the equivalent of pallor in his species. They can tear open reality itself, Elder Krill whispered, mandibles trembling. They could have done this to any of our worlds at any time. The interdimensional fire burned for precisely 10 minutes before the Stellar Forge activated again, this time sending a different energy pattern that carefully sealed the rift, leaving nothing but empty space where the demonstration had occurred. Ambassador Thomas Reed's voice carried across all communication channels, reaching every council world, every military vessel, every species that had supported the war against humanity. The demonstration is complete. What you have witnessed is one of many technologies humanity developed during our centuries alone in the cosmos. We did not share these developments because we understood the responsibility they carry. We did not use them against you directly because, despite your declaration of war, we still hope for peace. He paused, allowing the message to sink in before continuing. The quantum isolation field will now be deactivated. Your fleet is free to leave. Return to your worlds and deliver this message. Humanity does not seek dominion over the galaxy. We ask only for our rightful place among the stars as equals. But know this with absolute certainty. Should any force ever again threaten Earth or human colonies, what you witness today will not be directed at empty space. On worlds throughout the galaxy, the message was received with varying degrees of shock, fear, and in some cases, relief. Species that had opposed the war against humans now stepped forward in council chambers, demanding immediate cessation of hostilities. 3 days later, in a historic session of the Galactic Council, a new treaty was signed. Earth was recognized not merely as a member world but as a founding signatory of a new galactic charter, one based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical control. As Ambassador Thomas Reed affixed his signature to the document, High Elder Vorex approached him privately. "Your species could have ruled the galaxy," the Elder observed, bioluminescent patterns revealing genuine curiosity. "Why choose cooperation when domination was within your grasp?" Thomas smiled slightly. "Because what makes humanity unique isn't our technology or our capacity for violence, it's our capacity for growth. We've spent our history learning that true power lies not in destruction but in creation, not in conquest but in connection." He gestured toward the stars visible through the council chamber's transparent dome. "We didn't develop the Prometheus protocol to rule the galaxy. We developed it to ensure we'd live long enough to explore it, alongside others, not in spite of them." In the weeks that followed, humanity began the careful process of integration into galactic society. Not as subjugated newcomers, but as respected equals whose technological achievements had forced a fundamental reassessment of the Council's hierarchical structure. On Earth, life gradually returned to normal as citizens emerged from shelters and underground facilities. The planetary defense grid remained active, a reminder that vigilance was still necessary despite the peace treaty. In the President's office, Wong met with the key architects of humanity's survival strategy, the scientists, military leaders, and diplomats who had worked in secret for decades to prepare for this moment. "The transition won't be easy," noted Admiral Jackson. "Many Council species still fear us. Some may attempt retaliation despite the treaty." "Let them try," said General Davis with grim confidence. "Our sensors are embedded throughout Council space. We'll know of any threat long before it materializes." President Wong raised a hand. "That attitude is precisely what we must avoid going forward. Yes, we maintain our vigilance, but we must not become what we defeated, a power that rules through fear rather than respect." Dr. Maya Patel, recently arrived from Europa, nodded in agreement. "Our technologies were developed as a shield, not a sword. Now that the immediate danger has passed, we should focus on their peaceful applications." "Indeed," the President said. "The Stellar Forge has the potential to transform barren worlds into habitable ones. The quantum isolation field could protect vulnerable civilizations from natural disasters. Even the dimensional rift technology might one day allow exploration of realities beyond our own." As the meeting continued, a communication arrived from the newly reformed Galactic Council. Several member species were requesting human assistance with challenges ranging from environmental disasters to resource shortages, problems that humanity's advanced technology could help solve. "And so it begins," Ambassador Reed observed with quiet satisfaction. "Not conquest, but cooperation." 1 month after the treaty signing, humanity made another historic announcement. The technologies they had developed in secret would not remain exclusive to Earth. A new galactic scientific exchange was established, where species could share knowledge and work together on challenges facing all civilized worlds. There were conditions, of course. Strict safeguards ensured that technologies with destructive potential could not be misused. But the principle was clear. Humanity's achievement would become the galaxy's